Welcome back to our Proptech Ireland Property Matters Summer Special on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com.
Hello and welcome to this week's summer special of Property Matters on Dublin South FM in association with Proptech Ireland. As regular listeners will know, the Property Matters has taken a break for August, and we are using this time to actually catch up with some of the PropTech providers around Ireland. Last week we were down in Kerry meeting with Standard Access down in Dingle, and next week we'll be speaking to actually an investor, an Irish-based investor in a UK PropTech startup. But for today, we're talking to Anna Downes, CEO and co-founder of Video Sherpa. So Anna, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
So Anna, first of all, you know, it has been pointed out to me that we've definitely had a West Coast leaning on this series. So you're based in Galway?
That's right. We're based out of the Porter Shed, a co-working space in Galway City Centre.
Oh, very good. Now, Anna, we've spoken to you previously on the show, and it was under the guise of Show House. So, look, today we actually have an opportunity to talk about not just your business, but also kind of the ecosystem for PropTech startups in Ireland. So, look, I might just take you back a step before Video Sherpa into Show House. And when did you start that business?
Show House started in 2016. We had the idea for a video software solution that companies could use themselves to create high quality video content themselves, but to do so in a very easy way, very streamlined process that anybody could manage. Our background is in video production and in marketing. So we had this idea. We understood that companies needed more and more video content to share on all the different social channels that they try and maintain, and that it wasn't just a case of needing one or two videos a year, that they actually needed video constantly on an ongoing basis to keep that conversation going with all the various audiences that they're trying to connect with. So when they typically want to create video content, they hire someone to do it. But if you want to create content on a regular basis, then that quickly becomes unsustainable in terms of, you know, cost and everything. The price becomes a real barrier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we would have been one of those companies that people hired to come in and create those videos for them. So we understood the problem. We understood the pain they had, and that they needed content sort of quickly, almost on the spot. When an opportunity arose, they didn't want to have to wait a week to book somebody and arrange, to arrange the filming and then wait a couple of days for a draft edit and so on. You know, we've gone to the point now where videos you need almost that day, or certainly within 24 hours.
Well, particularly in the property space. So it makes sense that that's one you would have targeted.
Exactly. And actually, we had just ourselves come through the process of selling our house, buying a new house, and being from the video space, we were sort of shocked actually at the lack of video available, because it just made so much sense. It's such a good way for somebody who's looking to buy to have a taste of it, to have like a teaser of what the property is like. I think it really kind of gets you into the space much more directly than just some photographs and a big long piece of text describing it. So
absolutely,
we
but it's also
but
it's also such a time efficiency as well, because actually a video around the property, unlike photographs, showcases more the property, which means if it's not suitable, people who won't like the property tend not to turn up to a viewing. So there's an added benefit there that in terms of productivity for estate agents that completely got lost in the early days of the conversation about video.
Not only got lost, I think actually that was a barrier for a lot of the agents that we spoke to. There was a sense that it was a missed opportunity for them, that if somebody looked at a video of a property and decided it wasn't for them, that this was somehow negative, that they missed the opportunity to meet them in the flesh, talk to them, and actually that they could kind of convince them that there would be something that they were selling that would be suitable. So that's a response that we actually got a lot at the very start.
Wow, and that just doesn't make sense at all. You know, you won't talk somebody into the wrong property. Certainly, actually, if anything, that shows that there's such a disconnect between property sales and how consumers want to actually consume property, whether it's for buying or letting. There has been a disconnect in Ireland, and certainly, the Irish industry, in my opinion, has been too slow to pick up on this. And it's something that we noticed actually at the start of COVID. The services that had been on offer for 3 and 4 years, suddenly in February of this year, everybody wanted it. Like inquiries into Proptech Ireland multiplied, and we tried to put it out to the Proptech providers, but unfortunately the Proptech providers just weren't in a position to cater to all the demand at that time. Suddenly we had what would have been years worth of demand all required in 1 month. It just wasn't sustainable.
There was a huge increase in inquiries. Absolutely, you're right. I think the property industry has had to catch up very, very quickly in terms of what the consumer actually is looking for, and the way that people consume information now has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Even in the last 2 to 3 years, how many of us spend time reading long descriptive pieces on a product or a property or in anything we're considering looking at or buying? That day is just gone. That's not the way we consume information. And most of us are searching on mobiles, and video is the most effective way to share information on a mobile, because you're certainly not going to be scrolling through reams of descriptive information. So I think the penny has dropped. I really do, from conversations with people. Because as obviously people in the property sector, they're also consumers in their own life, and they're seeing it. They're seeing it the way that they would look up something new, whether it's, going on holidays or whether it's buying a new piece of furniture or whatever. We're all now, first and foremost, we're looking at video.
Look, I do feel that we're having very different conversations, not just in terms of 3D video or 360 video or virtual reality and augmented reality, right across the spectrum of technology for construction and for the built environment. We're just having a different conversation post-COVID as we were maybe in January of this year. But look, just going back to I suppose the origins of Show House, you started in 2016. At the time, you went through Enterprise Ireland.
We started on the New Frontiers program. Yeah, we did. We wanted to sort of test the hypothesis, really. Did we have a business idea? Did we have something that would actually have legs and that we could grow? So New Frontiers was a great start, because it just allowed you a little bit of time to test your theory and to sort of get in under the hood and see, was there a viable business there?
Okay. Did you do that through Galway?
We did, in GMIT, yeah.
Okay, excellent. And on foot of that, am I correct in saying you went on to become an Enterprise Ireland client?
We did. So actually, while we were still on New Frontiers, we were successful in applying for competitive start funding. So that's Enterprise Ireland's sort of almost first leg of funding. It's a €50,000 investment into the company, and they take 10% equity in the company at that stage. But it is a brilliant first step, because they're a really supportive investor. And it's at that stage of the company, that €50,000 gives you a real opportunity to get your first version of the product out onto the market, to actually get face-to-face in front of customers, to do your research, and to give you the time to just try and get it right.
Yeah.
And listen to what they're saying and respond to what they're saying.
Okay. And
so that was critical.
Yeah, no, and that's a fantastic one. It's something that the Competitive Start Fund seems to be one that there's very positive feedback about. Going on a step further, you became a high potential startup client. So you had to then go out and seek match funding. Did you do that privately through your own network, or did it come from the industry?
It came privately through our network. Again, I suppose one of the beauties of being based in a co-working space like the Portershed means that you have access to this group of like-minded people. There's a lot of startups there. There's a lot of small companies, maybe growing into mid-sized companies, and a lot of investors and a lot of people interested in the startup industry in Ireland. So we met our first investors there, and through them, through HBAN, we met the rest, and we got our HBSU in early 2018. Very
good. And that was under Show House, not Video Sherpa?
No, actually. So at this stage now, we had...
Yeah. So just in terms of rollout of the business, because I know I would have spoken to you in probably 2017, 2018, 2019. And, as a startup, getting traction in the market is always a challenge. So in terms of actually, going through the investment cycle, that's all very positive. But in going out into the marketplace, you were dealing exclusively with estate agents. Is that, or was it exclusively with the property industry?
It was initially exclusively with property industry, but not just estate agents. We worked with, and still do, property management companies, some small development companies in the UK, worked with interior design companies, anybody who wanted to use video to showcase the properties that they were trying to market or to sell. That's who we worked with. But we could see quickly that, well, there was two things going on. One, our product was equally applicable to lots of other industries, and we were getting inquiries from other industries kind of saying, could I not use it as well? And we were finding that the take-up within the property sector was much slower than we anticipated, and that we needed for it to grow, for our company to grow. So we sort of went back to the drawing board and looked at if we were to take the product that we had already developed and try and apply that and market that into other industries, what additional functionality did we need to add to the platform? So we spent time going back out, doing market research interviews, learning what it is different industries needed. So for example, if higher education institutes want to bring video production in-house and create their own videos to market to students, what do they need? What other features did they need? So that led us then to apply for HPSU funding to go back and redevelop the platform and actually add a lot more bells and whistles to it. So that process really took up a lot of 2019, and we relaunched again the product in the end of 2019. So Video Sherpa has been on the market again since November 2019.
Very good. And look, I always think it's very interesting. One of the magic words in startup world is definitely pivot. There will at some point come a stage where assumptions that you made might not pan out. But one of the surprising things here is that this is a service that objectively the property industry absolutely did need. There was just a really slow coming to the realization for the industry, and I'm not sure why that is. Certainly part of me thinks that it was because the bar was so low. So actually you had the industry leaders not doing a great job, so therefore anybody coming after that didn't need to do a great job. And it was a real problem, not just in terms of property videos, but actually in terms of online bidding, smart contracts, across a whole range of things. We just had very slow leadership in the property industry. Now, to be fair, that has absolutely picked up since 2019, but there was a long wait between 2016 when we saw this rash of new startups coming into the marketplace, and 2019 before there was really any sign of traction, so that's definitely an issue, and it's one that I would really love to ensure isn't repeated, and certainly during COVID, when we had inquiries in looking for us to put usually estate agents in contact with people supplying 360 video or Matchport tours, or indeed online bidding systems and smart contracts, anything that would make the property transaction more, I suppose, seamless and frictionless online, then, I did find myself saying quite often, these companies don't exist anymore because they weren't supported by the industry. And that's something that we cannot allow happen again. We're coming through, in terms of the pandemic response, estate agents have done a tremendous job actually in getting up to speed with the new guidelines, the HSE guidelines. They're getting back out there. They've absolutely embraced digital. Remote viewings are now the primary, and in-person viewings are the secondary protocol. So from that point of view, it has been great, and we've seen all of these technologies go from novelty to necessity. But from my point of view, we can't not learn the lessons of the past. So we can't, we need for the industry now to say, look, this is just the start of it. There is a way that consumers want to engage with you and your services, and there needs to be this consistent level of upskilling. It's not just a case that now you embrace online bidding, or now you embrace smart contracts, or property video, or whatever it is. It's that this is it for today, and next week and next month and next year, there needs to be this constant leveling up of technologies, because that's what consumers expect. That's what our handheld devices have trained us to expect. Do you think that attitude has changed enough to support new PropTechs coming into the marketplace today?
Well, I would agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think the take-up was very slow, and there was a fascination with, oh, look, is this the next thing coming down the tracks now? And people would definitely give you the time to stop and talk and think about it. But there was a real reluctance to actually embrace doing it differently. And so we would have spent so much time going around talking to people. They would take months to make a decision, and then they decide no.
Yeah.
That they were going to stick to the way they were doing it anyway. So I think the realization that it was almost like, it's an optional extra. It's maybe a nice to have, not a need to have. And I think maybe the scales have fallen now, and people realize actually it's not about are they going to change. It's that their consumers have changed and they've got to catch up with it. Yeah. And that's in every wake of life. We're seeing telehealth. People are getting, doctor's appointments on video. People are using digital services in every single aspect of their lives. And COVID and the lockdown has only accelerated that. There's no going back. There's no genie going back in the bottle. This is the way we are now. So I think it really would be in their best interest. And I think this is the part of the conversation that I've always been sort of fascinated by. It is in their best interests. It actually will work for them. It'll improve their business practices, it'll improve their business model. So the reluctance just needs to be put aside and embraced.
One of the things that I have definitely seen through my experience of speaking to agents and, through the Agile Agent program, we work with a cohort of 12 agents every year and take them through the entire cycle of digital transformation from start to finish. And it's fascinating what we learn there. Sometimes what we think the points of resistance are really point to something different. And, it's that old adage, it's never about what it's about. So it's not what we've seen is that it's not necessarily a reluctance to embrace new technologies. Sometimes it's an absolute fear because margins have been driven so low in estate agencies right across Ireland. This is not it's not a rural versus urban, right across the board in every market town in Ireland, as well as in every city. There's this really running to the lowest common denominator. It is a little bit of a race to the bottom with low commissions, and it's so detrimental, not just to each individual agency, but to the industry itself, because if it remains such a low margin business, then there can't be that investment in technology that's required to keep it at an excellent quality. So the financial part of it has to be a big conversation, but I know that that's something that you specifically address. So look, we'll take a quick break now, and when we come back, we might just have we might get into detail there about Video Sherpa and how that can actually help in terms of excellent delivery of service, but also in a budget conscious way. So again, that's Anna Downes, CEO and co-founder of Video Sherpa. We need to take a quick break now. Stay tuned.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
Howdy folks, it's Ray M here, letting you know that you can join me each Friday evening for Country Sounds right here on Dublin South FM.
I am a lineman for the county.
Each Friday from 6 p.m, Country Sounds is going to bring you the very best in classic and contemporary Irish and American country music. So why not join me each Friday evening from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on Dublin South FM for Ray M's Country Sounds.
At the credit union, we look at things differently. So whatever loan you're looking for, wedding loans, holiday loans, car or home improvement loans, make sure you talk to your local Capital Credit Union, where there are no hidden charges or early repayment penalties on your loan. We're not here for profit. We're here for people. People like you. Loans subject to approval. Terms and conditions apply. Capital Credit Union Limited, regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Are you part of a local community group or representative organisation active in the Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown area? Why not join a network of over 400 such groups in the Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown Public Participation Network? You can join the group, influence local policy, get regular updates about funding and other opportunities, connect with other groups like yours, publicise your group and even get free training and support. Make sure your voice is heard through DLR Public Participation Network as a registered group in the county. Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown Public Participation Network. For full information, find us online at dlrppn.ie. That's dlrppn.ie.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
Welcome back to our Proptech Ireland Property Matters Summer Special on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by an email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. We're continuing our discussion with Anna Downes, CEO and co-founder of VideoSherpa.com. So Anna, just before the break, we were talking about how, certainly cost was a huge factor in slowing the take-up of video across the property industry. Obviously, the pandemic has changed that. Video Sherpa launched in 2019. You might just talk us through how Video Sherpa works.
Of course, it's a very simple system to use. We designed it so that anybody, regardless if they had any video experience in the past, would be able to get up and running on the platform incredibly quickly. So Video Sherpa helps companies to create their own video content themselves. And they do this in a number of different ways. So they film using their own smartphone, but we give them a media kit. So they have all the equipment they need to get started. And they film using our software. And it actually takes them step by step through the filming process. So they know exactly what they need to film, how many clips they need. And it's very easy for them to put this together in our editor. They can add their branding, add captions, they can record a voiceover, they can add music, they can add closed captions if they want to share it on social media. And then with one click, they can get it out onto all the different social channels that they promote their properties on. But the crucial thing about Video Sherpa that sort of makes it different to maybe the other, Matterports and 360 views is Video Sherpa allows you to film an awful lot more than just the physical four walls of the property. You can do your piece to camera. So you can get your branding up front. You can really promote yourself as the agent of note. You can promote the reputation of your company overall. But you can also film footage of the locality and that, give people some footage of the local town, of the amenities, the schools, the transport links, all that kind of stuff. And it's that sort of bigger picture really that can entice somebody to consider a property that they may never have considered in the first place.
Yeah,
Video Sherpa then.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say was it's there's sort of two other features that make it really, really sort of a smart technology for companies. You have your own digital asset library. So you film some great footage of your town, your locality, all these amenities that I'm speaking about. You just add them to your library, reuse those again and again in other videos. So you're taking a little bit of time to film this footage and you're going to get more and more mileage out of it by being able to add that to all the videos in that locality. And that'll really sort of give a much bigger picture for somebody who's looking to buy or looking to move across country or looking to move to Ireland or wherever the case may be. So by being able to kind of add that additional value piece, that extra information that people are looking for, you're going to really kind of get a bigger, fuller picture of the property across to people.
Absolutely.
But you're also able to collaborate. So you can collaborate on the platform with the homeowner. You can show them draft versions of the video, you get their approval and sign off, and you can do all of that on the cloud, 24/7 access. There's absolutely no issue with that. So it's a very smart, streamlined platform for people to use.
And do the agents or do the users themselves actually edit the video?
Yes, they do it all themselves. It's super easy to use.
Do you provide training in that? Because I know that's one thing actually that people have been nervous about. Actually, do they have the manpower or people power within the office to do that? Is it going to be a big time constraint?
Sure. We do provide training. We provide quite extensive training, and there's a whole, as well as the training we give them when they sign up, there's also a whole library of short little videos that they can just look at when they want to do a quick refresher or figure out how to do something. But you're right. I mean, I think a lot of the time, one of the initial maybe pieces of resistance we come across is, I don't have time for this. And I think that's a legacy maybe of the last recession, that the number of staff in estate agents' offices definitely diminished. And therefore the feeling of pressure, of time pressure, is very acute. Whereas what we start to say to people is, okay, yeah, it's going to take you maybe, an hour and a half to film and edit and get this video together. But how much time is that going to save you over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 2 months in terms of showcasing that video? And not only is it going to save you time traveling over and back and over and back to show the video, to show the property, but it's also actually going to massively increase the number of views you're going to get online. And online is where everybody starts their property search. And properties with a video are proven to get up to 400 times the number of views the properties without a video tour associated with them. So straight away, if you are marketing two properties, one has a video attached, the other doesn't, the one with the video is going to outperform the one without every single time.
Yeah.
So you're doing a service to your seller. You're actually impeding the marketing of the property, the number of people who are going to see it and share it and maybe show it to a colleague or show it to a family member who's looking in the area. So really, it's ultimately going to save you loads more time than it's going to take you in creating the video.
Yeah, no, look, it makes absolute sense. And you mentioned there that you actually provide a kit. What is involved in that? Because people are using their smartphones. By the way, is any modern smartphone now, any contemporary phone, adequate quality for recording?
Pretty much. I mean, anything in the last 3 to 4 years, the camera quality on it is excellent. If you're still looking at your Nokia 3310, then forget about it. But certainly anything that people have bought in the last couple of years is going to be very, very good. The cameras are fantastic. What we provide them with, though, is the minimum essential kit that they're going to need to get started. So it's the DJI Osmo gimbal. It's the lapel mic so that their audio quality is crystal clear. The stabilizer ensures that the picture quality is crystal clear. And then we provide the connectors for the phone so that they're just out of the box, ready to go.
Oh, excellent. That's a really good idea, because actually gimbals are one of the simplest tools that makes such a big difference for videos, actually, exactly. if you're doing them yourself. One of the other things I really liked is that you referred to there a piece to camera. Now, that's something that actually estate agents have been loath to do. Almost everybody I've spoken to, very few feel confident in front of the camera. Very few, it's a very difficult thing to start. Once you get started, it actually gets a lot easier very quickly. But there seems to be a real mental block about getting started, whereas that definitely shifted when people were doing walkthrough videos. So it's one of the things I noticed in the last few months. As the restrictions started to, before the shutdown, just as restrictions were coming in, straight away we could see that estate agents were doing guided video tours through the property, just on their mobile, speaking through doing a speaking tour of the property, and that in itself was a big jump. But the piece to camera is a great opportunity in this online world to actually start to build a relationship and to build up trust with would-be buyers and sellers. So the piece to camera, having the option to do that, I think really lifts a property compared to some of the turning photographs into videos, or even some of the Matterport tours. The piece to camera can really be a competitive advantage to estate agents themselves, not just about the property.
Exactly, because as you said, it's a trust industry. I mean, you're, as an estate agent, it's your service, it's your personal service that you're selling. Every estate agency offers the same set of services. So it comes down to, who are the individuals I'm going to be working with? Do I like them? Do I trust them? Do I want to work with them? And so if you're hiding behind, maybe nerves about getting in front of the camera, then, it's time to maybe book a maybe 1 hour training session with a speaker if you're nervous about it. But oh my God, it makes such a huge difference. And we see this way more in the US. They're not a bit shy about getting out in front of the camera, and that really increases the brand profile of their company. So it's well worth it.
It does, but I'm always reminded, 20 years ago when we started seeing US business cards coming in with the faces on the business cards, it was just something that was unheard of in Ireland. And then you started to see a little bit of that in Ireland. So I think the Irish way has always been so much more subdued. And yes. unfortunately, that's carried forward right through to video, which is a shame, because actually I've always thought particularly kind of in more rural areas or in regional towns, generally speaking, the auctioneers and estate agents have so much local knowledge. So actually I love the idea what you were talking about there, as in capturing the locality. So you're taking it so far beyond the home, because as anybody knows, the property is about so much more than the four walls. It is about not just the neighbourhood, but what the neighbourhood is attached to and what the local amenities are. So having a digital asset library where you could showcase the local park, the local school, the local shopping facilities, local restaurants, everything. And it's so good actually from a placemaking point of view. You're showcasing a whole town. You know, so
Exactly.
are you seeing, are your clients actually taking advantage of that?
Yeah, and actually, we've clients who use it in lots of different ways. So, for example, we have a property management company in the UK, and they have also created for their tenants a whole library of short videos on how to do things in the home. So, for example, how to bleed a radiator, how to turn off the gas, how to change LED spotlights, you know, all these little things for maybe new homeowners that they're not really quite sure how to do. And it saves the landlord having to come out and do all of that all the time for the tenants. So, you know, video has so many applications. A lot of the time when we speak to our clients, they're coming at it from one perspective. It's like, oh, I need a property to showcase this lovely house that's coming on the market. And a lot of the time they kind of reserve video for only the best properties. It's like, oh, this is an extra special marketing tool that we reserve for the best houses. And we're not going to use it on just your, you know, bog standard 3 or 4 bedroom semi. And I'm like, but if it works to sell the great houses, why wouldn't you use it on all your houses? You know, and it's about broadening the mindset and really thinking about all the different things that you can use with video, because it's going to increase your return. So why not use it as much as possible?
Anna, that is so funny. I have heard so many agents say that that's a really special property, so we do need a special one. Or, you know, they're waiting to trial things like online bidding systems, but we're waiting for the right property. You know, there is this. So I don't know, is it a kind of a procrastination? Is it an excuse, or is it a really just not feeling comfortable and needing all the conditions to be optimum? I'm not sure, but that's a really interesting one, because I've heard that a lot. So Anna, before we let you go, just in terms of budget, because as we mentioned there, cost is such a huge consideration, and unfortunately property remains such a low margin business, which to my mind actually should be driving Proptech solutions as opposed to being an impediment to it. But in terms of cost, Video Sherpa, for the average estate agency, what would be the likely cost involved?
So Video Sherpa, it's $375 a month. The agents can create up to 60 video projects a year. So, I mean, it really just allows them to create video on a huge percentage of the properties that they've got for sale. I mean, there's always going to be a few that you're never going to create a video for. Maybe the state of the property itself, or maybe if it's a piece of land, you're not necessarily going to create a video around that if it's a site. But it's incredibly cost effective. I mean, in terms of increasing the number of views, the number of shares of the properties, saving them time in terms of repeat visits and so on. And now, particularly when we have, you know, restrictions in terms of getting out to see places. And I mean, we're all hoping that lockdown won't be reinforced, but you never know. So I think people have to just start looking at in terms of what return it's going to bring for their business and how is it going to help them deliver on their targets for the rest of the year. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. And more so than that, the HSE guidelines continue to be that people should be only viewing properties after they have either had, they've either looked at a video or gone through a virtual reality tour or something like that. So essentially, in-person viewings are still the second point for any transaction. And it's really important to remember that that's actually in the guidelines. It's not just a recommendation. It's an important one. Okay, so Anna, thank you so much for joining us today. Look, it's really interesting to just get the backstory of Show House and how that has transitioned into Video Sherpa. And I'm delighted to hear that there's been great market traction with Video Sherpa. And I can only imagine that's going to improve now, given the conditions that we have here. So again, anybody who's interested in having a very easily maintained video strategy, certainly head over to videosherpa.com. And that was Anna Downes, CEO and co-founder of Video Sherpa. I'm so sorry. We need to take another quick break. Stay tuned. And after the break, we'll be chatting to Ken Tobin of HQ Kerry, co-working hubs in Tralee and Listowel.
Everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Oh, will you look at them go? I wish I had their energy.
They're good for the soul, though, aren't they? I can't imagine life without Lucky. But he might outlive me yet.
Oh, well, take my advice and sign up for a Dogs Trust Canine Care card. It's completely free, and it's given me such peace of mind since I did.
What's that?
Well, it's simple, really. It means if you pass away before Lucky, Dogs Trust will take him in and give him the care and love he needs until they match him with the perfect forever home.
That sounds terrific. How much did you say it costs?
It doesn't cost a cent.
Great. How do I sign up?
Just text CARE to 50100 and they'll call you with more information. Or you can go to dogstrust.ie.
Well, that's wonderful advice. I'll do that right away. Here, Lucky. Good boy.
Whatever loan you're looking for, wedding loans, holiday loans, car or home improvement loans, make sure you talk to your local Capital Credit Union, where there are no hidden charges or early repayment penalties on your loan. Loans subject to approval, terms and conditions apply. Capital Credit Union Limited, regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Senior Line is a confidential telephone service for older people. Free phone 1800 80 45 91. We're open every day of the year from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m, including Christmas Day and New Year. So it's free phone 1800 80 45 91. We're there if you need someone to talk to and need someone to listen. We're older people too, so we will understand, and we're very good at listening. Did you get the Senior Line number? It's free phone 1800 80 45 91.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
Now, today we're joined by Ken Tobin, co-owner of HQ Kerry, and we're down on location in Tralee. Ken, thank you so much for accommodating us.
You're very welcome.
So we're here in your second co-working or flexible working space in Tralee. So obviously, over the last number of weeks and months on the show, we've been talking about the evolution of offices and almost trying to predict where the ball is going to land, which is difficult at this point. But you're in the unique position here that your facility was open throughout COVID-19.
Yeah, and I suppose we learned from that. We had a number of essential workers based in each of our three buildings. We've two in Tralee and one in Listowel. And they were working for essential services. And then we also donated part of one of our buildings in Tralee to the local Gardaí as an overflow, kind of a COVID response space. So we learned through them as to what measures we needed to put in place. Luckily enough, we don't have a huge amount of open plan. You know, we've very much gone along the lines that most of our co-working hubs are private individual offices. We have an element of the traditional hot desking spaces and shared meeting rooms and all of those. So we haven't had a huge amount of adaptation to do. But what we have done, we managed to do during the lockdown period and figured that out.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, let's take a step back. How long ago did the first HQ open?
Feels like an eternity ago, but it's actually only September of 2016 we opened our first building. Okay. And then within 12 months we opened our second building because of the demand that was there. And
they were both in Tralee?
Both in Tralee, side by side on adjoining streets.
So we're on Dominic Street now?
We're on Dominic Street now. Our first building, the largest of our three buildings, is on Abbey Street. It was a vacant building when we took it. It was one of the Celtic Tiger era buildings, which was the previous recession, not the one we're going through now. Yeah. But it was vacant for about 12 years. It was a shell and core building, and when we came in, we knew exactly what we needed to do with us, but we worked with a lot of our kind of key people that we brought in at an early stage that were going taking space off of us so that we could, I suppose, develop the ideal co-working hub based on their needs, as opposed to what we read and would have seen in other locations. We knew what was out there maybe in some of the larger cities may not necessarily work in a regional town like Tralee. So we opened that building in September 2016. Within 1 month it was full and we had a waiting list developed. So we went back and we acquired the building alongside us, and we took on 3 floors of that building and fitted that out, and a year later the second hub in Tralee opened. But we weren't satisfied with that. So a year later, in September of 2018, we opened our hub in Listowel. Now, the hub in Listowel is much smaller on a scale because Listowel is a smaller town, about 25-30 minutes away from Tralee. But I suppose it was almost an experimental hub for us to see, could a co-working hub work in a much smaller rural location? You know, Listowel's got a population of around 4,000 people. It's not massive, but an amazing, vibrant town, great for business. And we saw a huge opportunity there for us. And I suppose the one thing that we've seen out of the COVID-19 pandemic is the remote working evolution and how quickly that has accelerated. Now all 3 hubs are full, which is fantastic. You know, it's looking forward now. Where do we go next, and what way is remote working going to go? What decisions are going to be made in the larger cities, in the large office developments that's going to influence smaller towns like Tralee and other towns around the regional areas around Ireland.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, you talk about opening the new place in Listowel.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I remember 2 decades ago, Listowel was one of the places that was really targeted as a hub for government decentralisation.
Yeah.
And much to the frustration of local people, that was a long time coming, and it never came the way it was expected. And so from that point of view, it's interesting to see, 20 years on, we're really starting to see the trend in a very different direction, which is not decentralisation, but more remote work. And obviously not just for state, but for private companies.
Yeah.
So in terms of, you clearly, together with your team, you've clearly established demand and recognised the demand, but probably helped to fuel that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who are coming in, your tenants, your occupiers, at the moment, do they tend to be self-employed entrepreneurs, or are they using the space to avoid commuting to head offices in larger locations?
I suppose kind of pick on both teams. The decentralisation at the time was probably ahead of its time. The technology wasn't there, but also maybe the concept was slightly wrong, because what we are, through our own experience, people choose parish first. It always drives people then. Pretty much everybody that we have here that have relocated here would have had some connection with the locality. Whether that is through relations or maybe originally from the place and immigrated and came back. Whereas decentralisation at the time was about pushing people, square peg, round hole mentality, pushing people to maybe somewhere they didn't want to be. They did want to decentralise, but they actually wanted to go home. And raise the family. And, our demographic here of people that have returned are at that age level. We do have some and in particular more recently in the kind of early 20s, these cool tech people that we all like to see. We've got some of them, but for the most part, the people that have really returned here want to do it to raise a family. The cost of living here is a lot more affordable. Obviously, counties like Kerry have an incredible quality of life, the scenery and everything around us. But on top of that, then it's, access to schools, access to education for the future kids that are coming down the line, and people are making those plans. But we've also found that some of the entrepreneurs that relocated their businesses here did it because they weren't big enough to compete with the larger companies in the larger cities, and therefore were losing some of their key staff because they were being poached off them, and they couldn't compete with them on price to keep those staff. So they came back here to rebuild their businesses and to grow their staff count. And so far, and it's kind of almost a regret of ours, but it's something we're proud of as well, is that some companies have come back here and have outgrown our hubs and have ended up taking their own buildings in the town. We over recent years, we've had people that have come back on their own or maybe a small team, and now we're up to 10, 15, 20 people, but we didn't have the capacity to take that size. Most of our hub is smaller. We do have some space for large teams of 20, 30, but for the vast majority, it's 1s to 4s is our office space size.
And that's an interesting one, because it's almost like being penalised for success, and yet the purpose of you being here is to fuel the success of the tenant companies. But then it's there's a natural outgrowing process, which is massively successful for the town.
It's hugely successful for the town. I suppose we're slightly different to the vast majority of hubs. We're probably more similar to the large city hubs in that we're 100% private owned. We don't have and never have taken any public funding to do what we do, which holds us back to a certain degree, but it also gives us a little bit of flexibility that we can react quickly to changes. And because we're incentivized, it is our business, we need to make it financially work. It hurts us to a certain degree financially when those businesses outgrow us, even though from a philanthropy side and pride side, it's great to see it happen. So we do know that in coming years, we have to start looking at that next step space. That if we manage to secure those businesses here and they want to outgrow these buildings that we have something maybe they can step into as a new space for them. And that's our next phase. Towns like Tralee probably don't get the headlines when jobs of 5, 10 or 15 are created, because, those headlines are reserved for the large FDI. but actually it's happening on a daily basis. There are companies relocating for quality of life, for affordability, but also to make them more competitive and to make them more sustainable as a business. And that staff retention is probably a big driving force behind it. They're the areas that we support. It isn't just about a physical building. It's supporting the growth of those companies. And if we can continue to do that, maybe there is the possibility of larger companies coming here eventually.
Yeah. And, I think that every business within a town almost needs to be looked at within the context of that town. And Tralee, you're from Tralee originally. So what was your background?
Oh, mixed. Jesus. Originally, if you go way back into the annals of time, I qualified as a quantity surveyor. That was
property was there.
Property's in the blood to a certain degree, and I understand the bricks and mortar trade, and I know what's involved in getting the most out of a building. But also we appreciate the design element and everything that's required. My business partner in this, Tom O'Leary, is a small business consultant. That's what he has done all his life, helping SMEs and helping the growth of SMEs. So it was almost a happy marriage.
That's a very synergistic partnership.
It was, and I suppose I've been out of the QSing game now for, dare I say, about 15, 16 years at this stage, and got bitten by the self-employment bug. So I've had a number of businesses. Some have worked, some haven't worked. Luckily enough, we own a restaurant in town. I head up the local Chamber of Commerce in Tralee. So, small business, growing business, it's in my DNA. But I haven't forgotten my education, the analytical side of developing properties. So we have to marry the two, all our skills that we have to make this work.
That's a really good skill set to bring. Again, you talked about kind of the startups where you have your kind of young, trendy 20-something-year-olds, whereas actually we know now that the average age of successful founders is actually 44, which is almost double what people might have expected it to be. And that's something that I find really refreshing and heartening to talk about, because actually it's all of the experiences, trying things, what works, what doesn't work. What doesn't work teaches us just as much. So there's I think that over time people are building tool bags that they don't even realise they have until they go.
Oh, I think we learn the most from our failures. That's the reality of it. I mean, the mistakes we make, and I remember in our first businesses, the mistakes I made, I would never repeat them again. And that's a good learning curve for me. And, we try to support the businesses that come through us with what we've learned ourselves. But it isn't just us. We kind of foster this community within our hubs where they learn from their peers around them, from the other business owners. And remote workers or owners of medium-sized businesses are a huge vehicle for driving growth in the smaller enterprises that come through. To a certain degree, we don't have a huge amount of startups in our hubs. We kind of made the commercial decision when we started out that was not the space we were going to be in. But
it's a very vulnerable space to be in terms of cash flow. It's a chaotic, it's a chaotic time commercially.
But we weren't best placed to provide the resource to them. I mean, Tralee is lucky. We've got a very good, strong accelerator hub in Tralee, the Tom Green Centre, which has got a very strong pedigree of supporting startups through the New Frontiers programme. We from the outset, we acknowledged they are best placed to do that. Let them do that, and anybody that contacts us from a startup space, we always direct them first to New Frontiers, and we work in collaboration with them and with the now university that's coming into Tralee.
Of course, that's huge news.
Huge news, because it puts a profile on Tralee that as a town we are now a university town, and with that it supports the culture and the drive that's always been there but maybe not recognised as much. And the same for Listowel. Listowel has got a vibrancy about it. There's a reason why a town like Listowel wins Tidy Towns. It's because there's a strong community, a strong vibrancy in the town. And despite the pandemic and despite the impact of that on business, you can see opportunities and growth in towns like Tralee and Listowel and many other towns up the west coast.
Yeah, well, in terms of, you're well placed then, particularly in Tralee, but indeed Listowel as well, to look in terms of commercial buildings. Is there much vacant? Like, you identified the first building that you went into was vacant for 12 years. Now, obviously that was coming out of the crash. And, I think sometimes it's very distorted when we talk about the recovery, because I work right across Ireland. So I've never bought into this idea that we had a recovery in any particular year, because I know there's so many regions that never recovered. There's businesses that never reopened. There's petrol pumps, still boarded up. There's houses that never got completed.
Well, like ever before the pandemic hit, all the western counties from Sligo right down as far as County Clare were reclassified by the EU as being counties in recession. In reality, Kerry would have been one of those as well, only they were classed in with Cork, and we know Cork is thriving, and rightly so. Cork is an amazing city. Is there buildings available? Unfortunately, we have a lot of repurposing to do. We're not driven by the commercial forces of property development in towns like Tralee, where we have large developers coming in and taking on swathes of land and building the grade A buildings that we need as a town to develop. So we have to look at what we do have. There are supports that are out there for the larger cities that towns like Tralee need, like the Living City initiatives and various other ones, where we can look at repurposing our existing buildings. They're not going to accommodate, large companies of 200, 300, 400, 500 people and thousands of people into one building. But what they would accommodate, if repurposed, would be smaller organisations, smaller companies, back-end solutions, second site solutions. All of that is possible.
Yeah.
It does require a concerted effort that isn't currently there at the moment, unfortunately.
Where does that need to come from?
It needs to come from national level, and that's the reality of it. If we look at the commercial hubs that have been developed, they've been developed because maybe a few people have got behind it, look at the Ludgate hub, there was a few local people on the ground, got behind it, got a bit of support. Same for our hub here, myself and Tom got behind it, we said we're going to make this happen. That isn't the norm. That's why it hasn't happened everywhere. But yet you walk through the town centres, and Tralee is no different to any town up along the west coast and in the Midlands. There is a huge level of vacancy above the ground level. Those buildings have to be repurposed, but it's far too cheap to develop on a greenfield site. But if we look at how the towns are going to sustainably develop, developing on the periphery of towns is not the solution. We want to bring people back into the town centres working and living. We have an existing portfolio of property there. They need to be incentivised to redevelop those.
But even walking through some of the back streets to get to where we're coming today, which is of course on a pedestrianised street off a pedestrianised square, away from where, say, I was parking the car, you can still see vacant retail.
Yeah, tons of it. And the reality is, retail is going through...
Is that the kind of repurposing, though, that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's part of it. Certainly we've seen over the past number of years, retail is going through a little bit of a revolution at the moment. Online is hurting it out of town to a certain degree, but they're probably going through the same issues now. And we see vacancy in out of town retail. We have a lot of retail space in town centres that will never probably become retail again. And we have to look... And most counties are going through a county development stage at the moment, and they're saying, right, in 2028 and 2040, what will our towns look like? Well, that's where we start. We start at, in 2028, we want those buildings used. That's the first premise. And whether that is residential or offices or some alternative use that isn't retail, because retail probably won't come back to the same degree, and we work our way backwards. How do we enable those buildings to be repurposed now? And a lot of buildings will become residential, we hope. A lot of buildings will become offices for smaller companies and startups. They'll be repurposed into art and community hubs. Some may become retail, some may become coffee shops and bars, but we need to start on the principle that clustering towns into retail zones that will never become retail again is leading to mass vacancy in town centres. And I could take you on into any town in the country, and you will see it from the largest to the smallest, that there is entire streets that need help and need support.
Yeah, I think this is actually a conversation that is happening in Dublin for pockets of Dublin as well, and that is, when we're not using all of the building, then we have this scenario where the towns shut down at night. So I think Listowel is maybe a different example because of the layout of the town, but also Listowel actually has quite a high population of people living over their premises, much more than I've seen in any other town. But say for the likes of Tralee, in your experience, at 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, all shuts down. Like, what life is going on in Tralee? Yeah,
and I suppose if there's nobody living in a town centre, and if the younger generation aren't being attracted back to a town centre, it's going to impact on the nightlife. And I know Catherine Martin has established a nighttime task force now, which will become critical going forward. I'd have issues that maybe some of the right people are not on that. There's not enough private sector, not enough people that are involved in town centres on that. It's not going to change. We've gone through a cultural shift in regards to how nighttime economy is going to work in towns. after the last recession, we lost the student population. Drinking in house parties became the norm, but that was driven because of the fact that the money wasn't there at the time to enable them to go out 4 or 5 nights a week like we were used to when we went to college. That cultural shift has now happened with the wider population because we've got used to the house party culture. Our town centres at night are going to suffer unless people start living and working back in the towns. And it is a chicken and egg situation. We need quality, vibrant towns to attract those people, but we need to attract those people to make them quality and vibrant. Yeah. And that support structure has not been considered at national level.
Yeah, I love that as you're saying that, we're sitting doing this interview in your office on Dominic Street in Tralee, and I'm looking over your shoulder out the window to fabulous mural on the wall.
The HQ created.
And it's stunning. Like, you talk about vibrant communities. That is the demonstration of placemaking right there.
Yeah, it is. And when we've established the first building back in 2016, we were looking at a 60-foot by 30-foot big grey monstrosity of a wall. And that's not what we wanted the people that are working in the hub to see every day. So we worked with some of the local businesses and we matched whatever they came up with, and we brought in a local artist to paint this giant mural, which has become the most Instagrammed thing in Tralee.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous.
And it's stunning. Yeah. But what it did was it lifted the area, and the area needed a lift. It was a really nice street, and now we've got a nice vibrant mix of businesses around us that rely...
a beautiful cafe just downstairs that I plan to hit up next.
My cafe, yeah.
Is it?
Yes.
I didn't even know that.
It pre-existed the hubs, actually, as it happened. But it's to be honest with you, I say it's mine, but actually my wife, she is the brains behind that one.
Well, I can tell you, coffee stop is my next stop. But Ken, thank you so much for allowing me to very much on spec call in today, take a look at the premises, because again, it's something that I've been watching the progress online. It's amazing. When it comes to placemaker, when it comes to supporting the startup ecosystem and the developing businesses as they mature and being a support there for them, it's really good to see that you're really walking the walk. Genuinely, it's an impressive setup, and best of luck to you. So before we let you go, I know you talked about maybe offices for businesses who outgrow the smaller serviced office space, what they move to.
Yeah.
What's next for HQ Kerry?
What's next for HQ Kerry? We do have our eyes on a couple of properties. We're kind of, I suppose, before we were very gung-ho about our approach to it. If it felt right, we did it, and that was just gut instinct. Now it's very hard to predict what way things are going to go. We don't know what way things are going to return for the larger employers in the city locations, whether they're going to look at outsourcing some of their staff to regional areas, second site and all the rest. If we have a better understanding of what way that's going to go, we'll be able to push the button. There are opportunities, there are repurposing opportunities in Tralee and in Listowel that we're looking at the moment. We're also looking at developing a hub in Abbeyfield in County Limerick, actually, as it happens.
Fabulous. Yeah.
So, they're coming on stream. When they'll happen will probably be dictated by some of the larger employers in the larger cities. We would hope that, this time next year we're looking at the 4th building and possibly the 5th building up and running. Right now, we can't say for 100% certain, but we are ready to go.
Okay, great to hear. Again, that was Ken Tobin, co-owner of HQ Kerry. Thank you for joining us.
That's it from us today. Thank you for listening in to Proptech Ireland Property Matters Summer Special on Dublin South FM. You can get in touch with the show on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by emailing hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Also, my thanks to Peter Rice on sound and show producer Carol Tallon of Hear Me Roar Media. We're back at the same time next week. From myself, Carol Tallon, and all the team here, stay safe.